show built around bringing value to the Mid-Atlantic and growing. We're committed to helping families eating cleaner, safer, healthier food. I'm Matt Balducci, father, husband, bodybuilder, TEDx speaker, and business growth expert. And today we have our co-host, Justin, the Sultan of Sourcing, the Bavette Barista, right?
What's up, Heartland fan?
And he's going to be bringing a ton of value today, guys, because we're super excited. We're going to be talking about how to grocery shop with the things you can't get from Heartland Foods, okay? But before we dive into that topic and give you some value today, and Justin explains how it works in the grocery stores, we're going to bring Simon and Shannon on, our creative directors, to make some announcements. So take it away, guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Heartland family, for tuning in again to another podcast with the team. Just a couple reminders, of course, follow us on Facebook, check us out on LinkedIn, and connect with us on Instagram. If you missed our podcast episode or any of the past episodes, you're welcome to find those on our YouTube channel. So you can go to youtube.com/HeartlandHomeFoods. And then just to mention our awesome reorder special this month, we have that Creekstone Farms Butcher Cut Steak Special. So you get 4 of those with your order absolutely free. Make sure you guys take advantage of that. We are all fans here of the Creekstone steaks.
Get the freeze.
When you get your awesome deliveries, make sure that you thank our awesome delivery team and fill out our delivery survey so that we can know we're doing everything that we need to do to make sure that you're happy. I'll turn that back over to Justin and Matt, and make sure you leave any comments, questions in the comments below, and we'll try to give some shout-outs today as well.
Let's roll.
Let's do it. You ready, Justin?
I'm ready. Let's give that value.
Awesome. So, guys, you already know who Justin is, obviously, but I do want to make sure you guys are aware. So, Justin has been in this business for over 15 years, and one of the cool concepts of that is this is his expertise, right? So, I'm learning from him, and the cool part about his knowledge level is, again, 15 years of studying this, being in the food industry, also understanding farming, how it all works. But what we want to bring to you guys today is essentially just some tips on how to shop for the things you can't get from us, and how to make sure that you're making those right choices and not letting the marketing that a lot of companies do and the palatable, right? We'll talk a little bit about that later, of how all food, especially processed, is more palatable, which makes you want more of it. So with that, we're going to dive in, Justin. So, where do you want to start? Do you want me to ask you some questions, or how do you want to get this going?
I think we should just preface it with taking a step back and kind of understanding the conditioning that has taken place as far as how we shop, right? So when you walk into a store, whether you shop online, from the day you were born, you've been conditioned by big American grocery chains, right? They want to funnel you into certain options. They really narrow the scope, and all you really get to choose from is the natural products or the organic products. And there really isn't much more than that as far as details and insight into when you really break down what is the quality, what's in this stuff. You're not really even sure what you're looking at. So I think today what we really want to do is just kind of open your eyes a little bit to just a different approach to how we look at labels and how you make these decisions in the grocery store.
I love it. And something that I think we'll dive into, and we'll see if we get to it, Justin, is if you guys think 30, 40 years ago, right, the difference between now and then in terms of the processing and how, the supply chain works from a grocery store approach. Obviously, we weren't around back then. But, if you think about how short of a period that's been from then to now, and when you look into the world, there's a lot more health issues than ever before, a lot more mental health issues, which we can get into a little bit later. And really, you see obesity on the rise, and you got to ask yourself, what is the cause of that? Obviously, there's a lot of factors, but I think there is a huge aspect to how grocery stores market their products. So let's dive in a little bit, Justin. So you just mentioned, natural versus organic, right? So, when you say that, that they only funnel you into these 2 categories, can you explain maybe in depth on the difference between natural versus organic, and a little bit of how what that actually means? Because I think a lot of people that are watching don't really know, or if you met with us, you do now. But Justin can explain that a little bit in depth.
Yeah, so organic by the USDA's terms versus natural, it's different for different products. For meats, it means something different than it does for vegetables, for oils. So we want to kind of start with who's doing the certifying. When you see that little green label, what does it even mean, right? So the USDA doesn't do any certifying. So the government is not who you're trusting when you're buying these USDA organic products. So there's 80 contractors, for-profit companies all over the world that certify products organic. So if you ever go to the back of any of these products that you're buying, it's going to tell you who the certifying contractor was who actually did that work. That's the company that you're actually trusting to tell you, okay, this product's organic or it's natural or whatever. So the interesting thing to me is there's 31 of these 80 contractors are based in other countries. And right on the USDA's website, it tells you that these contractors adhere to the guidelines of the country that the product is coming from. So it's not all created equal. And you'll flip to the back of some of these labels. Sometimes it'll list 5 different countries. So if they don't even know what country specifically the product's coming from, they certainly don't know what farm it's coming from. And it's very hard to verify, okay, how organic is this and what does it even mean? Because in many instances, certified organic is literally just the feed we gave this animal was organic. It doesn't play into if it was breed modified, if it was processed on a surface that was just cleaned with harsh chemicals, if they stuck it into packaging that was styrofoam or chemical based, and then you get leaching issues. So just because something's certified organic doesn't mean it's something you want to eat. And to give you one example of that, one of the most popular chicken feed ingredients, which I believe is banned now, but arsenic was in the chicken feed, and arsenic's an organic compound. I don't want to eat arsenic. I don't think you do either. So it just gets more complicated, and as time goes on, it gets harder and harder for a consumer to get visibility into the quality of their products. So recently, a few years ago, big lawsuit with the World Trade Organization. They won. Basically, they can say on country of origin labeling that it's a product of the USA as long as they packed that product here in the US.
That's crazy.
So how do you even know? You just don't.
So when you guys are out there listening to this right now, when I first started learning about this, one, it blew my mind because, again, you just don't think about it, right? And education is key and understanding how this all works. And so, the number one thing I can tell everyone out there today is take action on this. If you want to go verify what Justin's talking about, go do some research for your own. And after you do that, then it allows for you to actually know what you're putting into your body, which is vitally, vitally important to everything from a mental health and also physical health standpoint, especially with what's going on in the world today with, needing to get your immune system to be extremely strong. Okay. And, with that, Justin, it's an impressive, one, again, the knowledge you have, but two, for you personally, obviously you know this information. So why do you think the average person should pay attention to this information? Why is this important information?
I think it's very important because, people vote with their dollars. Everybody knows that organic products, higher quality products are more expensive. And there's a lot of people who unfortunately just don't have the education that go and buy these products and they trust them. And they're spending extra exorbitant amounts of money on something that might not even be better than the product that's sitting next to it that's not certified. So it's more so you should really care about where this stuff comes from. If you are going to get higher quality products, you should at least get the quality you expect. So round about the whole thing, if you don't know exactly what farm it came from and what the process was there, you pretty much don't know anything. So for me, shopping in a grocery store, I always give the Wegmans example because they get their USDA certified organic beef from, is it Uruguay or Uruguay? I don't know.
Uruguay.
But whatever. So
I like it.
South America, right? Their non-organic beef comes from farms in New York.
Wow.
I don't know which one's better, but I'm probably picking the regular stuff. It's cheaper and it's more localized. The supply chain's smaller. So it's not organic, but hard to say,
It's when you listen to that, right? It blows my mind personally because for years, I was just going to the store and, you think when you buy organic that, and you are spending a lot more money, right? There is a huge, I'll call it the organic tax on it, right? Which when you see that, you're thinking, okay, I'm going to spend a little bit more money and get a better product, which is going to be healthier. but we just trust the word organic for what it's supposed to be. And in reality, it's not exactly from the surface level of what everyone thinks it is. And honestly, I never even questioned it, right? And I think that's what most of us don't do when we're thinking of, when we go to Wegmans, right? Huge company, and they're phenomenal. We love Wegmans, by the way, right? But again, you just don't question. You just trust that they're providing what they're supposed to provide. And in reality, behind the scenes, this labeling really doesn't mean what it means, right? And we're getting misinformation. And so, when you think of it from that perspective, so let's dive a little bit into, for you, Justin. Obviously we talked about organic pretty heavily right now. And then there's the natural side of the table, right? You got both options. What's the difference between when someone's going into the grocery store and they're looking at natural versus organic? Like, what's the difference from that between those two labelings?
Yeah, so natural doesn't even really have a certification. It's just a definition from the USDA, and it's nothing added after the processing of the animal. So basically what that implies is it's in its natural state as we cut it and we give it to you. So everything in farming is fair game in natural products. So I would basically say that the word natural is irrelevant on packaging, and organic actually is the reverse of that. So even if everything's done correctly in USDA organic, it only pertains to the farming or the raising side of things, and then the whole supply chain after that point is fair game. So neither one really covers the whole spectrum, and that's kind of the deeper level of where we source our products. And if it's A&F or part of our Never Ever program, in our product list, you see A&F in that far side. That means we have the full audit trail from soil to shelf, and we can tell you everything. So, and to give you the example, if you're in the stores, what transparency would be to me is when I walk up to the meat counter, it says, okay, it came from this farm, it was this breed, it was fed this, it was harvested this way, it was processed this way, it was packed this way. They don't tell you any of that. None of it. So you basically know nothing when you're buying these products from the stores.
That's crazy.
It is mind-blowing, right? And again, as you guys are hearing this, one of the key that I want you guys to look at is the fact that it sounds like there's a lot that you have to do, right? If you want to eat healthy, you got to go answer all those questions that Justin said. And for the average person out there, you just don't have the time, let's be honest, right? You need to run to the grocery store, pick up food so you can cook for your kids and just make sure you got food on the table, So with that, I want to dive a little bit into our, Heartland, right? So maybe someone's watching right now, they're out there and they've heard of us, but they don't really understand the level of how we service with our food product, not necessarily the actual program and how that works, but basically, what's the difference, Justin, from when they walk into the grocery store, they go to Wegmans, they pick up that organic chicken breast or those chicken thighs that are pretty wrapped, right? If anybody's ever seen them, they look nice in their packaging. I don't know if anybody's...
Nice skin packs.
Exactly, and you think they're nicer versus when you go pick up just the big jumbo pack that, has kind of the diaper on the bottom and all that kind of stuff, the styrofoam. But with that, what's somebody who's listening that doesn't know, about how we source our food, what's the difference? Why should they talk to us about it?
Well, it's a different answer for each source. So which should we talk about first? Should we talk about beef?
I think for any red meat eaters out there, I'm a huge red meat eater. And when I learned this, it changed my life. But what, maybe talk a little bit about our beef and red meat.
Yeah, so when you're looking at labels on beef, you pretty much have two options when you go to the grocery store. You've got the regular stuff and what they term as grass-fed, right? The problem with grass-fed is it's not exactly what people think it is. So when we talk about pasture-raised, that is a completely different thing than grass-fed beef. So imagine feedlot confinement, same way traditional beef is raised now. The only difference between the grass-fed and the corn-fed stuff, those feeder bins, they're just filling them with hay, which is dead grass, no nutrition, and we're going to call that grass-fed. So the terminology you want to look for is pasture-raised. And this goes for when you're buying things like eggs, butter. Ignore labels that say things like cage-free, free-range, organic, right? No, what you want is pasture-raised. That you can't fake that. That means animals out in a pasture, the way they're supposed to be raised, eating the correct diet, and that's going to be a completely different product. You buy organic eggs, all that means is that they just gave them organic corn and soybeans instead of regular corn and soybeans. That's all that it means.
That is insane. Insane, right? And again, from somebody who's only been with the company for, half a year beforehand, I was thinking grass-fed meant, what you think it would mean, which is that they're out there eating grass. And in reality, again, it's just the definition and looking up what it actually represents and means behind the scenes. And we all make our own assumptions of what it's supposed to be. So also free range, again, you assume free range means that the chickens are out there roaming around, doing their thing, right? Living the dream of a chicken. And in reality, they're actually in a horror show, right?
Well, that's one of the biggest crimes to me is these are breed broiler hens, right? They're breed modified. They've been bred to be enormous. They get to 6-7 pounds in a 47-day period. That's their harvest age, right? Like all that chicken you buy in a grocery store, organic or not, it's a 47-day harvest period to 6 pounds. So whether that chicken's in a cage or not, people do not realize that these birds are getting so big so fast, they cannot even support their weight, right? They are sitting on the floor. So cage-free, free range, if the chicken can't walk, what's the difference?
Has anybody out there seen WALL-E, right? That's the movie I want you to think about. It's a Pixar movie. Yeah. And imagine humans in the future like that. That's what these chickens are living, which is they can't move. So when you can't move, what happens? You're super sedentary, right? And, basically at that point, fat just kind of piles on top of each other. And then they, get it ready in 47 days, which is freaky. And that's why you get those jumbo chicken breasts, at the grocery store, right? Yep. So, so if we kind of go through this a little bit, Justin, we're talking about, beef, chicken, in terms of that, any other feedback for anyone out there that on the red meat side, anything else that you want to, give value for if they're happen to have to go buy this from the grocery store, what should they be looking for?
Oh man, it's tough because I just don't think it exists, or you won't be able to verify it. That's the hardest thing for me, is not to badmouth any of their sourcing. It's just you can't trace it. You don't know where it comes from. So that I'm not okay with that. I want to know where my food comes from. I want to know how the pastures were rotated. So the nutrient density of beef from Creekstone or Thousand Hills is completely different because they're moving these herds on pasture rotation. So just so what people realize what that is, cows eat the forage. The top of the forage is where all the nutrition is, where it grows in, right? So they move the herds into a new pasture. They eat that one, and then they come back into the ones once the grasslands grow back. So it's a different nutrient density to what you're eating. So it's going to have higher omega-3s, lower omega-6. So when your doctor tells you, hey, you need to cut back on the red meat, not really. You just need to stop eating the wrong red meat that's causing those health issues, because when the omega-6 fats are jacked up, that's what's causing your problems. That's what's leading to inflammation and cholesterol issues in your body. So if you're eating really high-quality pasture-raised beef, it's a similar macro profile to something like salmon, where you're getting healthy fats. So there's a massive difference of what you're going to look like and feel like based off how this stuff is sourced. And when you go into the stores, specifically for meats, I haven't seen it where they'll tell me what farm it came from, verify the pasture rotation, and also guarantee me that there were no DDGs in the feeds, right?
What's a DDG?
So DDGs are dried distiller grains. So there's a whole industry where they use corn to make ethanol and whiskey. And on the back side of that, there's a byproduct of the corn. It's called a grain byproduct, or a dried distiller grain. That is sold back to the cattle industry, and it's mainly used.
Jesus.
Well, it's one big ecosystem, right?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Sold back to the cattle industry, used in grass-fed beef, because the USDA does not recognize grain byproducts as grains.
Wow.
That isn't. Wow.
Right? So
It's
now
a loophole, right? It's a loophole, essentially.
Yeah.
It's like it's how they're able to put that label on there and then sell it that way. And like you said, you don't know.
Yeah.
There's no way of knowing.
It's just crazy. It's just crazy.
Now, with that being said, I'm not 100% against grain. I'm not. It's just there's a responsible way to introduce some grain into the diet without harming the animal. As long as it's still a predominantly grass diet, that the cow's ruminant animal has 4 stomachs. They're naturally still going to get that cleansing that they need.
Yeah.
All this bacteria and recalls and all this nastiness, it's from the mismanagement of these animals. It's never happened once in any of our farms. We don't have recalls.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome. So for anybody that's listening, guys, obviously when you're listening to this, Justin, right, in
Sorry,
our wellness,
I get fired up about this stuff.
I love it. It's getting me excited today, right? So, but Justin and our wellness consultants that we have on staff, you got to realize that this is the education that they're getting, right? And this is the education we're passing on to our clientele out there. So we're not just, come buy your meat from us. We're going to educate you exactly where our meat's coming from, and we can give you an audit trail, literally an audit trail from farm to your table of where the meat and vegetables is coming from. And that's not just for red meat. That's for your chicken, your seafood, every single item that you're purchasing from us. We'll be able to give that to you. So if you want to learn more of how that works, please go check out our webinar, which is featuring Jay Money himself, okay? But it'll explain super in depth of how everything works with our service and why 20,000 families out there, right, over the last,
What are we up to, 80 years?
80 years, which is crazy, have used our service and continue using our service, and, why you need to just learn more about what you're eating. So with that, let's kind of rotate a little bit, because obviously red meat is huge, and I love red meat, but most families, as we know, sitting down with families, right, typically eat mostly chicken, right? They do a lot more maybe seafood now because, again, red meat is bad for you, right? That I'm putting quotations if you didn't see that. Yeah. But like Justin said, if you're eating the right red meat, it's not bad for you, right? But the problem is when you're getting it from the grocery store and you don't know exactly how they, source that red meat, that's what's creating these high cholesterols and these issues in people out there. But if you're eating the right, red meat in moderation, it's really good for you. But let's dive a little bit further. I know we talked a lot about chickens and how, they can't hold their weight, but most people eat a lot of chicken. I know I do. So what should people know about, the poultry world?
Yeah, it's if anybody's seen Food Inc., if you haven't seen it, it's a great documentary. It's pretty old now, but
no, that's a good movie.
I was like, is there a special announcement coming?
Usually that means comment, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's a bunch of people commenting.
Oh, let's announce them.
So we got Dave Shuttler, looking smooth guys. Lori Slattery saying hello from Florida. Jay Gibson saying hello from Beaufort, South Carolina.
Ooh.
Wow.
And then we have Lauren Elizabeth right now, just coming in from Maryland.
Nice.
Very nice.
Awesome.
People
Welcome
tuning
to
in.
the podcast.
Tuning in from all over the United States, baby.
So back to chicken. Yeah, so
Bark, bark. No.
I don't have that one.
I know, that's why I did it. I was like, I don't think
we're gonna have to add that one to the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, so watch Food Inc. There's a great scene in there where they're going through the chicken barn, and the guy's literally, I'm not kidding you, he's kicking the chickens to see which ones are still alive. Because the growth progression is so strenuous on these bird systems. A lot of them have heart attacks. They die. They're so stressed out that I'm not saying most, but I don't know what the statistics are, but some of these chickens don't make it. So there's a lot of turnover, and they're going through this barn in this video, and they're figuring out which ones are live, which ones are dead, and they're just throwing them in a wheelbarrow and moving through the chicken farm. It's just a terrible lifestyle, and all that stress in the animal, more so in beef, that it transfers to the way it tastes. But all that cortisol and stress hormone that gets passed on. It's not something that I want to eat. I want to eat, responsibly raised animals. It is important. There is ethics to this. If you're going to eat animals, a lot of people don't anymore because of the inhumane treatment. Mm-hmm. And it's not one or the other thing. There is a responsible way to source your food where you can feel good about the way these animals were treated, and you don't have to feel bad consuming meat. So there's another world. A lot of people, I don't think they realize that companies like us are specifically sourcing things that are humanely raised. And the health benefits are drastic because chickens that can get exercise are leaner, right? It's just like humans. So Murray's family farms, where we get the chickens from, they're heritage Hubbard chickens, so they have a natural growth progression to about 3.5 pounds. That's a full-grown heritage chicken. It's getting a lot of exercise. So when you're looking at macro data, 1 gram of fat in a 4-ounce serving of Murray's chicken, it's going to be up to 6 in commercial chicken.
Wow.
That's
so
crazy.
I'm eating 6 times less fat at every meal, bad fat, than somebody's buying commercial chicken. And it's just not fair because they have been conditioned to shop that way. They don't know the difference. People just don't know.
Yeah.
it's crazy when you think about it too, because, you know, from a chicken standpoint, you think lean meat, right? So everyone tells you go eat lean, go get chicken, go get turkey, right?
Yeah.
And what you're discovering is if that actually there's a lot of fat going on in it. So, you know, obviously, Justin, let's be blunt. We both know that you can talk about this for 3, 4, 5 hours. And the reason is because, one, you're passionate about it, but two, at Heartland, we believe that every family out there should at least get educated on this and then have the information to make the right decision on what they want to do with their food, right? So, you know, what types of questions should families be asking? You know, and I know you went through a bunch of them, but maybe if you can give a family out there maybe 4 questions that they should be asking when they go to the store and they're looking at meat specifically, and it could be beef, chicken, whatever, that they should be looking on the packaging or whatever, just questions that they should be researching to know if they're eating healthy, you know, sourced meat or responsibly raised animals.
Yeah.
Or is it impossible?
It's impossible. It's impossible.
Wow.
Got it.
Yeah. I mean, go anywhere. I mean, maybe there's small butcher shops potentially that will source locally, you know, that'll get you something better than what's in the big chains. I don't know. And
Wow.
that's been impossible to verify. You know, everywhere you go, call any of these companies, hey, where do you source this? Where do you source that?
You won't even be able to get.
You're not getting answers.
Got it.
What about for the other things in the grocery store? So if not getting your meats, what about all the other products? Because, I mean, obviously we eat other things than just the meat and just the vegetables that we're getting from Heartland. What are some other tips we can give people as far as grocery shopping for the stuff they're not getting?
Yeah, so I think you should look at, getting back to that original conversation of the certifications.
Yep.
You know, I'll go through, if you look at, you know, something that, like, we don't have a farm for olive oil, right?
Exactly.
So that's something I got to buy, or I use the Zoe that, you know, we have here at Heartland that's sourced from Spain. It's, you know, certified organic, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what's important to me is I'm going to look at the back of the label and see if it'll at least tell me the country, right? Or if the certifying contractor is QAI, which is Quality Assurance International, they're like the biggest one. That basically means nothing to me.
Yeah.
But if it's, you know, one of like the California olive oil brand that isn't certified organic, but it has a third-party certification of like the California olive oil growers, can't remember exactly what it is, but that means, okay, this is coming straight from one place in California.
Right.
I can narrow it down a little bit. I feel a lot better about that supply chain than potentially stuff coming from all over the world, China, you know. I mean, there are USDA organic products that come from China, guys.
Wow.
What does that even mean? Like, that's crazy that is even possible to be able to, like, somebody to certify organic in China and then import it here and then
Still
call it
that.
like that's.
Wow.
I feel like that should be illegal.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
that's the system, right? Because world organizations are more powerful than state organizations. So, you know, there's a huge ecosystem of people. You know, America's a consumer society. Other countries want to sell their products here. And the World Trade Organization makes sure that can happen. And the consumer is being taken advantage of.
Man, oh man.
Wow.
So let's move into a little bit about, you know, diving into grocery store specifically, right? So obviously we just gave you guys some education on, you know, the difference between going to the grocery store and buying, you know, meat and not knowing where it's coming from. But you still got to go to the grocery store, right? Like, it's just, you're obviously with the way the world is today, you can obviously have people deliver stuff to your house, but they're going to the grocery store for you.
Exactly.
And they're picking it up. So how do you navigate the grocery store? And I really want to kind of dive into that. You know, if you're really trying to eat healthy, eat clean, you know, and actually know what you're putting into your body, you know, maybe, Justin, you give some tips on how to navigate the grocery store, like what should people be, you know, doing when they get there and so on and so forth. And I can give a couple tips as well after you're done. So.
Yeah, I mean, full transparency, I don't really buy that much stuff from the grocery store. So I've noticed, actually, when I was in high school, I worked in a grocery store. So I got to see a lot of how this stuff works. And they have these things called reset crews, right? They come in every 6 months or a year, whatever it is, and they shake the whole store up, right? Because you shop at the same places, you start to learn, okay, these are the things I buy, I know exactly where to go to get them, and you don't spend as much time in the store. Once they do a reset and you got to go relearn where everything is, now you're going up and down every aisle, you're grabbing maybe some things you wouldn't have seen, you're spending more time in the store, right? You're putting more stuff in the cart. So just try to be very conscious of, you know, go with a list of the things you want, right? Like, this is what I'm buying.
And stick to it.
Like, when I go to the grocery
That's
store,
huge.
I'm a creature of habit. I know exactly what I'm buying. I'm buying coffee, right? I'm buying my coffee, and I'm buying blueberries, fresh blueberries.
Delicious.
Right? I'm intentional in my shopping. So be intentional in the healthy stuff. And just, it's a cliche thing, shop the outside of the store. That's pretty accurate, right? Buy things that are real food. If it's in a package, it's not necessarily always the worst, right? There are some decent packaged things, but flip over the back, read the ingredients. If there's stuff you can't pronounce, your body has 2 million years of evolution that has not seen these chemicals. Don't put it in your body. It can't be a good thing.
Nope.
This stuff's banned in other countries, and they don't have the health issues that we have.
True.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
A couple tips I would give everyone to avoid the grocery store if you don't want to. I actually have not been to a grocery store probably 7 or 8 months, even before COVID hit. And one is because I hate it. And two, I'm the worst shopper. When I go in, I am the guy that gets caught up and I see the cookies and I go buy the cookies. And then I'm like, you know what? One donut won't hurt me. And then, my son's with me and he wants the candy and blah, 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 blah,
slippery
blah. Right?
slope.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope, right? And then, but a couple things you can do to avoid it, and these are the things that my wife and I do. Obviously, we use Heartland for all of our meat and our frozen vegetables, and obviously you can get your grocery items from us as well. But CSAs are huge. Looking up a local CSA. Yep. We have one near where I live, and it's phenomenal. They literally, with COVID, they deliver it to my house. Sometimes we have almost too much produce, and then my wife, it forces us to actually use it in our dinners. The second company I'm a huge fan of is Thrive Market. They have phenomenally healthy products that actually you can go verify, and they're really good, and the pricing's not too bad, and you can get healthier peanut butter and different things that we don't sell other than on our grocery package, and then Imperfect Produce. So what that company does,
Seen them, yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah. I recommend it to everybody. It's they take the ugly produce that people don't want in the grocery store, right? Because it's a visual thing, and they deliver that out. It's the same stuff except that it's healthier. So
I think important thing on that. I don't think people realize that there is a ton of food that gets wasted because grocery stores buy what's perfect. So these Hungry Harvest is another one.
Super awesome.
Yeah, they buy, and that's why it's not expensive either. They're buying the stuff that the grocery stores didn't want that would normally get thrown away. So it might be shaped a little weird, whatever. But
can we go in on what a CSA is?
Let's see here. I don't know the exact definition.
I think it's
community-supported agriculture.
There you go. Yeah. Perfect.
Community-supported agriculture.
Yeah. And basically all it simply is, guys, it's a local farm or a local area that they actually do, produce, fruits and vegetables that are actually fresh. And what you do is you sign up usually during the actual appropriate season. Okay. So like ours is from May to, I think we're coming up on the end of it right now. And then obviously they can't produce it anymore, which many people don't know that in the fall, and we're not going to go down this path, but in the fall and winter, especially in colder states, we're still eating food that our bodies actually should not be eating at that time, but that's for a whole nother day. But basically you can, depending on where you're located, usually it's from the middle of spring through the end of fall into the winter. And you basically get a weekly selection of whatever they produce. So like sometimes they just have peaches and you get a bunch of peaches, and sometimes you get tomatoes and whatever it is. Obviously another one is have a garden in your backyard, right?
That's the best. You can raise it yourself.
And if anybody needs tomatoes, find me on Facebook. I'll deliver you some, because for some dang reason our tomato plant is producing like hundreds of tomatoes every single day right now.
Not a bad problem to have.
No, we're giving them away to everyone.
That's the opposite of us.
But so back to kind of the grocery store. Obviously, that was just and by the way, we have no affiliation with any of those companies.
I do want to say one more thing about that. So when you use these CSAs or find a local farm or shop with Heartland, like, you are supporting local farmers and ranchers that need your business. Like, these publicly traded grocery store chains will be fine without you, right? Like those things, they're going to be fine. So yeah, when I can't get my eggs or whatever locally, which I do. So I live down in Ashburn, Virginia, and I get all of my eggs from a local farm in Purcellville. Shannon Teague, she's got Teague Farm, so shout out to her if you're in that area. It's great, right? So she tells me what they feed. It's pasture-raised chickens. They are supplemented with flaxseed, which increases the omega-3 count. Right, like, I get to know exactly what I'm eating, and the taste and the quality is so much better. right? So do as much of that as you can. Anyways, keep going. Sorry.
Yep, no worries. No worries. I love it. And again, guys, you can get everything from local farms. My wife and I made a decision about a year and a half ago that we were going to support local farmers. And we get all of our meat, dairy, milk. It's funny, I'm blanking on the one I get it from, but we get it from a creamery. And it's a local farm that produces all of our milk as well, especially, and again, don't want to go down the topic of milk today, but if you're going to drink milk, you absolutely need to know where that's coming from and go there. But let's dive into just a couple things with the grocery store that I recommend. So, Justin hit on it, which is going with a list, and I think that's an easy one because the grocery store is set up, just so everyone knows, for impulse shopping. And if anybody has not researched it, it's pretty crazy, right? Why are the eggs, the milk, everything that is your staples, why is that all the way in the back, right? Why is it all the way where you have to walk through the whole entire store to get to the simple things that you need versus why wouldn't they just be up front, especially when that's what you're shopping for really every other day, right?
Yeah.
It's simple. They want you to walk through the store, and human nature and psychology and how our bodies work and our brains work is you see the bright colors coming at you and you're like, you know what, I do need that cinnamon toast crunch. Right?
Oh,
it's delicious, don't get me wrong, but there, in terms of that, the other thing is all the aisles have is processed foods. And everyone is probably, who's listening to this, you've heard this hundreds of times, stop eating processed food, right? Obviously you're going to eat some of it, right? It's just in moderation. But at the end of the day, right, the reason that we buy that stuff is there are scientists literally daily. That's what they're doing. They're sitting down trying to come up with the perfect blend of where it feels good in our mouth, right, when we're eating it, the flavor, how much sugar, right? And ultimately what we're finding is that it actually, you're going to continue eating it. It's addictive, right? It's actually addictive, and it doesn't fill you up. And that's why you continuously eat and eat and eat, and then you want more snacks and so on. So without, I'm going to get off my little stool here and stop yelling out there. But that's the thing, is that you got to understand what they're actually doing to you. They're there to make money, right? And that's okay. Just so everyone's aware, I am 100% cool with that because it's a business. But you have to realize that they're setting it up not for your health. They're setting it up to profit, right? And so if you want to understand that, I recommend going and Googling it and looking up, I forget the exact book, but it explains exactly how they build the grocery store and how to avoid all the downfalls to it, okay?
To your point on taste, texture, flavor, things that taste good, let's take peanut butter, for example, right? A lot of people are like, oh, I don't want the stuff that separates. I don't want to have to mix it, right? That's natural, real peanut butter, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a little inconvenient. You got to mix it up. But the stuff that's all perfectly silky smooth, I won't say the brands, we all know them. They're using chemicals, hydrogenated oils to get that creamy, perfect texture.
Right.
It's not good for you.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But so obviously, guys, we are super passionate around this topic, as you can hear it.
Yep.
And we really, really want people to eat healthier and at least have the education to know, because most people, let's be transparent right now, most people just do not know. Right? They do not know because, again, we're so busy. You don't have maybe the time out there to go sit down for hours and read the books that we've read and understand this stuff and really get into it. And obviously there is a select group of people out there that do that. But that's why we're here, guys. That's why Heartland Foods exists, is that we're here to educate you. And, again, set up an appointment for us to come out and you can try our food. You can actually get educated on this stuff. And worst case scenario, you decide that it's not for you, no worries, right? But once you know, you know. Okay, and then that's your decision you got to make. But we're super excited. We're going to close out here. Obviously, guys, I hope this was super valuable to you guys. But any last remarks from you, Justin, on this topic?
Definitely. I just want to say to the whole Heartland family, use us as a resource. Being part of this community and eating our food is not just to get a food delivery. We want to help you learn all this stuff. If you're interested or you have questions, or maybe you're in the grocery store, like if you're one of my customers and you're in the grocery store and you're not sure, shoot me a picture. I'll help you, right? Use us as a resource. Every health and wellness consultant on this team, everybody at this company wants to help you, not just with the products that you get from us, but your entire health and wellness game. If you want help with your fitness or how to count macros or lose weight, whatever you're trying to do, we want to help. Yep. So don't hesitate to reach out. You are not a burden. We want to serve you.
Yep. And you can post in the comments as well. of these podcasts and those kind of things, have people post in the comments any of their questions. We can cover them as topics. Justin has a wealth of knowledge. So does Matt. Make sure you post those questions.
I love it.
We'd love to cover it.
I love it, guys. So please share this podcast with anyone out there. Maybe you have a friend that's been thinking about Heartland, and maybe they just don't know enough information. And let us come out there and at least meet with them and educate them on this topic. But with that, guys, we're super excited for you guys for the rest of the week here. When you go shopping, when you go take that trip, use some of these tools, right? And let's just recap really quick. Go in with a list, right? Number 2. Spend most of your time on the outside of the aisles. Don't go into the aisles unless you absolutely have to. And when you do, close your eyes, run to where you need to go. No, I'm just kidding, right? But, make sure that you're spending most of the time on the aisles, and don't let the marketing fool you. Do not let the marketing fool you, and make sure that you have an understanding of what you guys are eating from that standpoint. And we didn't go into meal planning or anything like that, but that would be my last tip, is start thinking about meal planning, what you're eating, so that way you can actually build a list and budget yourself out. And you're going to end up, and I don't want to talk about money here, but you're going to end up saving money in the long run too, because you're going to stop the impulse buying, which most people do, and they don't even track it, right? They don't even track it. But with that, Justin, you want to close us out, my man?
Yep. Just want to say thanks again to the whole Heartland family. And as always, stay healthy with Heartland.